Welcome to our 5 on 5. Pleased to welcome in, of course, U.S. Senator Ron Wyden. Senator, good to see you, sir.
Thanks for having me back.
Making the trip, just arrived in Medford, flying all day, all morning, and you're on your way from here to Oregon Tech for a town hall. Busy times indeed.
Yeah, I was on the Senate floor this morning at 2:30, got home about 3:30, packed, and got about 20 minutes of sleep and headed for the airport. But it was just really important to get home. I mean, we're 3,000 miles from Washington, D.C., and for a lot of folks in Southern Oregon, D.C. might as well be Mars. And we've had about 1,070 plus town hall meetings, and at every one of them, I think it's just really important to listen to folks.
Yeah, and we're very happy you're here, and obviously a long trip, but you're making it. So a lot of people in Washington were, of course, worried about that potential government shutdown. That's been averted with the vote you took early this morning. Is there anything in that bill that stands out to you or for Oregon?
Well, of course, the natural resources budgets are particularly important. Senator Merkley and I work very hard on them. We know, for example, we've got to do more in the area of forest management, getting in there and thinning out these overstocked stands. But the most important thing beyond some of our regional priorities is these shutdowns are just bad for Oregon and they're bad for the country. And usually they're about kind of political footballs. We had a few of those votes last night, and people were talking about abortion. We didn't have any recorded votes, but I think we still have some of these folks who are trying to turn back the clock in the wake of the Dobbs decision, and I just feel really strongly these decisions are for women and not for government. You
have a bill to expand the child tax credit, of course, as everybody's doing their taxes right now. Will that become law?
I'm very hopeful. It certainly is a challenge in this kind of cauldron of election year politics. I wrote this bill with the new chair of the Ways and Means Committee, Jason Smith. He's a conservative. He's from Missouri. We said what we ought to do is have a very carefully put together bill which has some incentives for business, particularly small ones, and research and development. And we've got 16 million kids who deserve a fair shake in terms of the child tax credit. The child tax credit system today, incredible that it sounds, really discriminates against big families. If you have 3 kids, and about 70% of these families are pretty large, you only get a check for one. And I always say that you can't have 3 kids dividing up 1 pair of sneakers.
You've been pretty outspoken about concessionaire changes being needed at Crater Lake National Park. A new operator was just named. I assume you're happy with this.
Explore US. What happened was, and people ask kind of what do senators do? We heard from a whistleblower in December, and he said there were real problems with the concession services at Crater Lake. And remember, Crater Lake is one of our treasures. This is in our DNA. And I said, I'm not going to let all these service problems, and there were problems about the environmental protection and sanitary services and sexual harassment. And I really dug in, and the Park Service came through quickly. We now have a new contractor for the concessions, Explore US, and we're going to make sure that the special jewel of Oregon is protected for all time.
Okay, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Much more in just a moment with our senator. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. Again, we're here with U.S. Senator Ron Wyden. Senator Donald Trump holds an 8 percentage point lead over Joe Biden in Michigan while tying with his Democratic rival in Pennsylvania, according to a pair of new polls released just yesterday. How concerning is that to you?
I don't think these polls mean a whole lot right now. I was there for the State of the Union. I thought the president showed a lot of passion, a lot of energy, really stuck to the economic issues. He talked about one of my priorities. You look at how flawed the tax system is. Craig, if you are a billionaire and you don't want to pay any taxes, in many instances for years on end, 3 words: buy, borrow, and die. Do those 3 things and you can get out of paying taxes. Now, firefighters, nurses, and teachers here in Southern Oregon can't get out of paying taxes, and I'm a capitalist. I want everybody to be successful. I want everybody to make a lot of money, but everybody's got to pay their fair share.
You joined some of your Senate colleagues in writing a letter to USPS Postmaster General Louis DeJoy demanding protection of jobs and mail delivery, especially in rural areas like ours. Have you gotten a response yet?
I don't believe we've gotten a formal response, but I mean, this is really bizarre, even by Washington, D.C. standards. The Postmaster General, of course, Mr. DeJoy, he's running a program that I think the only way you could see it adding up is if he wanted to privatize services, and that would be particularly bad for rural Oregon and particularly southern Oregon. And now you have these odd arrangements where mail that comes into Medford goes to Portland and eventually comes back. I'm even baffled about what goes on with respect to mail. And I assume they don't do it for mail, but I'm going to be checking.
The UN Security Council failed to pass a U.S. resolution calling for a Gaza ceasefire late this week. What's your reaction to that and the latest, of course, in this ongoing
Well, when
conflict?
you look at some of the people who voted against the United States interests, no big surprise. I continue to believe, and I'm sure I'll get some questions, that there are some real priorities. And right at the top of my list, it's getting the hostages out and getting the humanitarian aid in. Those are my real priorities. And then as we begin to start moving in the right direction, we'll talk about a two-state solution. Some of that involves trade and commerce. That would be before the Senate Finance Committee, where I'm the chair, and that'll be a priority of mine.
Well, we've talked about a wild 12 hours for you, I suppose. I don't want to say 24 hours. Thank you for taking the time. Good to see you.
Let's
Have
do
a
it
safe
again.
trip over to Klamath and Lake County.
Thanks, friend.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.